Good evening and welcome to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen Workshop. Today is May 2nd, 2019, 6:30, and we do have a quorum. The prayer will be by myself. Pledge of Allegiance will be with Vice Mayor Brown. You should all have a copy of the minutes. We will have at the meeting a presentation, a certificate of recognition to the Girl Scouts Troop 1006 for the Bronze Award. We'll have departmental reports. Moving on to old business. Motion to approve an agreement with Mason Holdings South PG LLC regarding the Bain Drive improvements, State Industrial Access Program, state contract number 190072. And this is the motion that we've deferred and we've talked about for the last few months, where Penn and Tony will partner with us on the state grant for that program.
And where are the minutes at?
Should be in your packet that was sent over to you. Should be on your iPad too, I believe, right? Mm-hmm. Does anyone have any questions about the agreement?
Did we get the confirmation from the state we were waiting on? Bruce,
What confirmation are you referring to?
weren't we waiting on something from?
They have approved the project, and they have sent us the contract. We have not signed the contract, waiting on this to get approved.
Did the company put that dollar amount, the
Yes,
$250,000?
well, it's actually $450,000. And one thing that everybody needs to keep in mind is if the city's cost goes over that $450,000, the city will be liable for it. It's not like we can, it's my understanding of the state contract, we can't just end it at any time. So, you know, if the city's costs go over that $450 that they are going to pay, the city would be on the hook for it. But looking at the estimates that the state provided, it doesn't look like it's going to come close to that.
And they've
But you never know.
allocated the $450.
That's what, yeah, this Mason Road Holdings East, yes. And the representative of the developer is here if y'all have any more questions.
Moving on to consent agenda. Felicia, got quite a bit here now. Under A, items 6 through 20 were discussed at the budget workshop as far as capital items to pull from next year's budget to this year's.
The first bid was the non-hazardous waste for all city buildings. I only received one bid, and that happened to be Waste Industries, which has got our current contract at this time. I would just recommend we go ahead and stay with them. Any questions there? Okay, moving on. The street striping bid. You remember we had to come before you all and get blessings to pay a $28,000 bill to Kerr Brothers because Pope Striping was not able to fulfill there, so we put that back out for a bid. Pope Striping was the cheapest, but I'm sorry. Cheapest is not always best. You kind of get what you pay for sometimes. And Kerr Brothers is who we're recommending because we know they can come through. Any questions there? Street, the light, interstate lighting, high mask, repair and maintenance. S&W is the one that was came in at the better price, so Garland and I have discussed and would like to recommend that. And honestly, we don't just, this is what we're gonna do. We have discussions, so, but if y'all have any questions, feel free to stop me. The guardrail replacement and repairs. LU is a little bit higher, but Tennessee guardrail has a requirement of 200 linear feet minimum. Not comfortable with having to have a minimum before we have a project done, so we're recommending that we go with LU Incorporated of Kingston Springs.
With the guardrail repair and replacement, is that something that we go back with the police reports of who damaged it?
If it's possible. A lot of times there is no police report of who damaged the guardrails. That's the same with the lights at the I-24. If it possible, we go back, but if there's not anything on the police report, we can't.
So when you
But
say,
yes, Garland tries to go back and get the insurance to pay.
so how many times a year have we had to do that?
Well, I think we've, got insurance on the I-24 line now, but on the guardrails, you know, sometimes they're hit, like out on industrial, they get hit, they just stop.
Right, right. So definitely if it's one that the police are involved, we can recoup our damages.
I always get there, I get a report in a box over there, and then I go through it. If
It's worth a try.
I mean, we've been paid for several times.
Good.
Yeah, as long as they have insurance. As long as they have insurance.
Yes, and we've had 2 or 3 on the interstate where they were these late to be here, so.
Right.
No, they didn't pay. But we do have ours to call out.
And I have the citywide generator maintenance bid. Garland, Michael Dietz, and David McGowan, all sit in that bid opening. And Lee Company was the best for our money because, if you'll notice, they were the ones that were gonna come out 4 times a year. The others were 1 and 2 times a year, and when you add, if I doubled or tripled that, then it was gonna be a whole lot more than Lee Company's price was. So, any questions there? Okay, we don't have any questions on the other things, right?
Hey, let's go down each of them if you don't mind.
Well, something that we discussed already with the budget workshop. So is there a specific item that you're wanting to address?
No, I'd just like to go down.
Well, for, as far as for time's sake with the meeting, it's something that we've already discussed, so
I mean, there's several hundred thousands of dollars here, so I'd like to go
That-
down each item.
you mean the items that we discussed already?
Yes.
Is there a specific question about any specific one?
Mayor, are you letting me know that we're not, I don't have the right to go down?
You have the right to go down yourself, but what I'm saying is for this meeting, since I'm the mayor for this meeting, I'm saying we've already discussed this, so unless there's a specific question about an item, we can move on to B.
Okay, let's go with number 6, fire station, number 3.
Is there a specific question?
There is. I'd like to speak to the department head
So-
over the question. Chief, if we can go through the bids on that, please.
The quotes?
This is an in-house.
Okay.
So there was
Actually,
no
everything
bid.
will be in-house. And we have the quotes, I have the quotes attached to what the items will cost, but the actual work is in-house, so there's no extra bids. And it's only $5,000, so we don't get bids at $5,000.
And that
bids are
was
at
discussed at the
$25,000.
budget workshop.
So can you tell me what exactly that was for?
That is, Station 3 is for trim, wall boards, repair to the walls, painting of all the, painting will all be done in-house and finished before June 30th, on or before.
Which is part of the memo in your packet.
You ready to go to number 7?
Station 2 is to a complete kitchen remodel and the appliances for the kitchen. It has not been updated in years. So they're gonna repaint, they are gonna paint the ceilings and then new bay doors.
And at the reason why I want to go through it, because at the budget workshop, we had high estimates, so I'm just trying to get a better factor of the number.
The numbers haven't changed.
No, the
So-
numbers
What
are
number?
attached.
What number do you have on that?
The 25,000 that's in your packet,
Now, I'm gonna say that it may come in less than that, but you've gotta look at all that we have, and the bay doors you're looking at $13,000 worth of bay doors to be installed.
And that's what we're outsourcing.
That's the only thing we should outsource.
so any other specific question that wasn't covered at the budget workshop? Alderman Church.
Yes, number 8. Can you describe to me the SRO software for the fire department?
That
Where
was-
exactly we're at on the cost on that, Chief?
Well, that was in your packet as well,
$26,444 is the cost.
which again
That's
is in
my
your packet.
memo.
Mayor
Evan has
Cole,
reviewed has been given the contract.
I just want to, the reason why I'm going over this is because the citizens of Laverne, some of them may or may not have been involved with our budget workshop. So being that this is a workshop,
You mean the televised one that's recorded and available to anyone online?
so
So it is available to them.
we just want to continue.
Well, at this point, this has all been covered at the budget workshop. Felicia, if you would please move on to B, the approve agreement with XO Communications.
That's not me.
Or actually, yeah.
Excuse me, Evan?
Sir.
So as a sitting elected official, do I have the right to go at a workshop to ask these questions, or am I out of order?
Well, it's the mayor, as the chairperson of the meeting, has the ability to control that, so.
So Mayor Cole, I just want to make sure the reason why you're not allowing me to ask these questions, to reassure myself that we're fixing to be involved with a $20 million budget.
Well, the $20 million budget is further down. This is the consent agenda, and as I said, items 6 through 20 we discussed at the budget workshop, and many of the questions that you're asking as far as the prices in your packet, I'm sure you've had a chance to review that.
But we didn't get the packet until what? Till when?
Tuesday?
I'm more than happy to meet with you if you want to.
I would really, I'd like to go over it right now. That's what this work, but
Well-
it's the workshop. That's what it's for. And I
We-
really can't
We've gone
believe
through
you're-
that with our budget workshop already, as I said, and you were there, so it's televised for anyone. We've already gone through this. This is redundancy.
Alderman,
So-
do you have a problem with us going
Moving
through
on, this isn't up for discussion, Alderman Church. Moving on to B, approve agreement with XO Communication Services. Glenn, is that you, or who is that through?
I can say that.
Yeah, they've been
Or,
working forward.
actually, this is
with them, but
this
I
is with
can-
city right-of-ways.
Yeah, this is essentially a license to allow this XO Communications to install fiber lines along several of our right-of-ways. It's a standard agreement that we do with everybody who asks for this sort of thing. We've done a couple of these in the past. Basically, it just highlights what they can or can't do. They have to pay us $500 per year for the right to use our right-of-way. And then there's also a map. It's on page 131 of the packet that the little green lines on that map show where the overhead fiber will be installed on poles. And then I think there's one little section there that's in blue, which is actually underground inside of our right-of-ways. So that's what this agreement allows them to do. And they're essentially installing it on behalf of Verizon, is my understanding.
That's what I was gonna say. They're Verizon's installation company, that does the fiber, and it's part of Verizon's expansion for bringing 5G into the city, and they will also, I think, be leasing fiber to various businesses within the city if, they so choose.
Any questions on this agreement? Moving on to C, approve the renewal of a maintenance agreement with Motorola Solutions for city radio equipment. Chief Walker.
That's essentially the same contract we've had in place for the last few years that covers us 24/7 for our NICE recorder. It gives us the top of the line 24/7, 365 maintenance coverage for the NICE recorder, which records all of our PSAP calls, our incoming standard calls, and all radio traffic on every frequency we have. Plus our Motorola radios, everything on the back end here, the portables, the mobiles, etc. And it guarantees us that we have the protection and the upgrades, etc., according to everything that Motorola says they did to begin with. Now, this will change later once they get the new equipment built in and we attach to tacking. It will change some because some of the equipment will change and that will be added in at that point in time. But as for now, we have to begin July 1 with this contract again for probably about 6 months. And
Okay.
then it'll revert back and be modified, and we'll address it again.
Okay. Any questions on the Motorola contract?
I have a question for the chief. So the $71,856, is that for a year, annually, or?
That's the annual maintenance agreement and contract to cover everything to make sure all the software's upgraded when need be, et cetera, et cetera.
And when we bid that, do we just compare it to?
You don't bid it, it's Motorola, it's proprietary.
Yes, okay.
It's their equipment and nobody else can bid that.
Does it play in regards to the tower that we're adding to the police station?
It will down the road,
Okay.
after it's done, in about 6 months, hopefully, we'll be at a point or 7 where we'll flip the switch and move to TAC, and then once that's done with that new equipment in place, they'll come back and revisit and modify this agreement and send it back for the board to review again.
So the 71,000 possibly could just carry us for the 6 months, and then we may have to come back and get more.
That's 71,000 for the year. They will modify it and either hand that off onto the new maintenance agreement when needed, and there may be an addition or there may not. We don't know.
Could be a
yet.
credit.
Possibly, one way or the other.
Great. Thank you for answering that.
Moving on to D, approve use agreement with Rutherford County Crimson Tide Youth for youth football and cheerleading league. Felicia?
Good evening, Mayor, Board of Aldermen. So all this is you guys should have the copies in your packets. I do have hard copies if it's available. We're just renewing this year. There are a few changes in there. Do you have any questions about any of it?
Yeah, I sent you a text message today because me and AC had talked about this extensively. And we had tentatively agreed on $1,500, and you said that y'all decided on $2,000.
Yeah, so the ordinance passed January of 2018 had it at $2,000. That way it would cover field maintenance on that one. And that was a flat fee collectible at the end of the season.
Which is not bad. I was just basing it on the fact that I had AC to check into that really, really well, and he had seemed to think that $1,500 was going to be very ample for it. That's why I was.
Yeah. So, and we also made a change on the concessions, if you take a look at that. So it's, that is taken out, so we're not collecting any type of concessions, and we upped the flat fee. So I think it kind of evened itself out.
Right. And that's, I talked with Derek today, and he's very appreciative of that.
Good.
But, you know, I guess I was
And we will be
under
meeting
one
with,
impression and got another.
yeah, and we will be meeting with him on Wednesday, after, as long as everything goes well on Tuesday.
To sign
To
the-
sign, So, more than welcome to be there.
All right.
All right. Thank
Go
you.
Tide. God, that tasted terrible.
Moving on to E, approve change order number 1 with Tyler Technologies for the EnviroGov permitting software. Adam, is this you? Thank you.
Mayor, Board, this is a relatively straightforward change order. It's not actually a change in the amount of funds. It is still, I think, 10,500 or perhaps 11,000. You've got the numbers there with you. Essentially, things have been going relatively smooth in us getting the system going. So we haven't had to use all the services that they initially thought they would have to provide in terms of making new forms for us. So in the interest of being able to do some additional things to help us get the program implemented, we're changing from a by form, by service type agreement to an hourly rate. So they can just charge us for stuff that's outside of what was originally in those forms. And that's really all there is to it.
Any questions?
Would this be considered professional services?
It is a proprietary software that was bought through Felicia.
Tyler Technology.
Well, I was trying to think of our
EJDC.
EJC, Government Purchasing Cooperative.
So we don't have to bid this out, right?
That is correct.
Thanks.
Thank you, Adam. Moving on to F, approve a service agreement with SB Services to conduct a telecommunications audit for the city of Laverne. Glenn?
Yes, this is something that we've done 2 times before. I think the past 2 years, I believe.
I think it's been about 4 years
Did
since
we
we've
skip
done
a
it.
year? Okay.
Yeah.
It's a company that just provides us an audit service to go through our cell phone plans and bills and our TDS plans and bills and make recommendations if there are better plans available to save us money. And we always jump at that, so it's something, like I said, we've done 2 times before, and they've saved us money both times. They've recommended better plans for our cell phones, included unlimited data, and were cheaper than what we had at the time. So that's essentially what it is.
Any questions?
I don't see a price on here.
Yeah, they are paid depending on how much they save the city. If they find any credits over the last 2 or 3 years, however far back they go, they get half of whatever credit we receive. And then if they change plans where we get a cheaper rate, so to speak, for the next year, they get half of what that savings is. So, and basically we would just pay that, whatever they find, we would pay that up front. We wouldn't pay them every month for a year. They would just bill us one time and we would pay that. So they essentially get 50% of what they save the city.
With no retainer?
No, not that I'm aware of, no.
Any other questions? Moving on to G, change order number 2, Fergus Road Drainage Basin Sewer System Rehabilitation Project. Mr. Neal.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Board. We have for your consideration change order 2 for the Fergus Road Sewer Rehabilitation Project. This change order balances the estimated bid quantities with the final installed quantities, adds some items of work found to be necessary during construction, and then adds time for weather delays and for the additional work. This change order is for $19,368.76. It combined with change order 1 add $24,018.16 to the construction cost, or approximately 5.2% of the original bid price. If you all would consider and accept this change order, it will enable us to finalize this project.
Do you see any other change orders in the near future?
No, sir, this is the end of it. This is our final price.
Moving on to new business. First reading ordinance 2019-08, an ordinance to amend Title 14, Chapter 5 of the Laverne Municipal Code regarding the membership of the Board of Zoning Appeals. This first reading for this ordinance for 08 and 09 are both partnered together. This is where essentially we're adding the same terminology that's present in our other boards to both the Board of Zoning Appeals and the Stormwater Appeals and Advisory Board to get them consistent with the other boards. Does anyone have any questions on that?
And it says shall serve at the pleasure of the board. What exactly does that mean?
Exactly what it says. It's each person on there will serve at the pleasure of the board. So, and if you read further down, it mentions members may be removed from office by a majority vote of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, with or without cause. So that would tie in with that.
How are they put on there presently?
Currently, the way that our ordinance is written for those boards, it is appointed by the mayor with confirmation of the Board of Aldermen.
So we can just remove somebody from the board for no real reason?
That's how it is with all of our other boards virtually, with the exception of these 2 boards. That's why we're getting them as far as consistent with all of the others.
but these two boards are a lot different than our other boards.
How so?
The planning and zoning and BOZA and things like that, you think that's the same as Parks and Rec?
This isn't planning. This is just Board of Zoning Appeals and the Stormwater Appeals and Advisory Board.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, moving on to number 8. First reading ordinance 2019-10, an ordinance to amend Title III, Chapter 3, Section 3-306 of the Laverne Municipal Code regarding court costs. Essentially what this is this is trying to add some efficiency for our court staff. It increases the court costs by $1.25, so that the total cost, if they're paying a ticket, would be an even whole dollar instead of it being 25 cents or 75 cents and dealing with the change of all of that. So it makes it a whole dollar. Any questions? Okay. Moving on to number 9. We have first reading ordinance 2019-11, an ordinance to amend Title 8, Chapter 3, Section 8-310 of the Laverne Municipal Code regarding the application for and insurance or refusal of a beer permit. This received a favorable recommendation at the April 18th, 2019 Beer Board meeting. This specifically deals with the food to alcohol ratios and gets us in line with the state on that. Any questions? First reading ordinance 2019-12, an ordinance to amend the fiscal year 2018-2019 general fund budget. This one deals specifically with the consent agenda. First,
This is the $584,000.
this is the funding for that, yes, for the consent agenda. First reading ordinance 2019-13, an ordinance to amend the 2018-2019 fiscal year budget, general fund budget. And this one deals with the funding for the health insurance. Is there any questions?
Yes, Phyllis, was that an increase?
No, this is, when we get toward the end of every fiscal year, we start looking at what our health cost expense was during the year, and we want to make sure that our reserves are at an appropriate level. We try to maintain right around $1 million level, and it's kind of dropped down to around 680-ish. So we wanted to go ahead and replenish that reserve, which basically means our insurance costs have gone up throughout the year, our claims.
Any other questions?
Thanks.
First reading ordinance 2019-14, an ordinance to amend the 2018-2019 fiscal year stormwater fund budget. Again, this is dealing with the health insurance.
Same thing.
Any questions? First reading ordinance 2019-15, an ordinance to amend the 2018-2019 fiscal year water and sewer fund budget. Now, this is dealing with both the health insurance as well as some equipment.
That's true. That's from the consent agenda items.
So the, out of the water sewer fund, we can pay into the health insurance?
Yes. Every fund that has employees assigned to it, which we only have 3 funds, and that's general fund, stormwater, and water sewer, so.
First reading ordinance 2019-16, an ordinance of the City of Laverne, Tennessee, adopting the annual budget and tax rate for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2020. Does anyone have any questions? You should have received a copy of the budget.
I do have a question. I didn't see any funding for a rescue unit. I did see increases in some of the other nonprofits that we've had in the past, and then some new ones also, and I just wanted to ask about that.
Well, with the rescue squad, my feeling was I did not hear a presented case as far as a service going forward. I understand that they've provided services in the past that if you ask anybody, if you just go out on the street and ask them, they've done a wonderful job with those, and they helped great along with our employees and others with the census. But it's establishing what going forward their service would be. And spoke a little bit with Chief Clark as far as their certifications that Dana Blair sent over to me, and just going through trying to see where that fits in with the city's needs. Any more questions?
And I think are we staying with the 35,000 for pause? I think Alderman Jones had questions about that.
No, in the packet you should have received, it has 0.
It's 0, okay.
Yeah, the very far right-hand column is the recommended.
Okay. Can we go down these or no?
Well, you should have already had that and been able to review that beforehand.
So again, we can't go down this either.
Well, for time's sake, we've already gone through that with the 5 or 6 budget workshops. So we've gone through that, and you were provided a copy to review.
I got my copy yesterday.
Okay, you picked it up yesterday,
No, I got it yesterday from the city administrator.
but it wasn't emailed to you?
No, not this one.
Okay, so the
Picked it up
paper
yesterday.
copy. So
Yeah,
you
I
received
didn't
an
get the email
electronic
either.
copy.
No.
Wasn't the whole board emailed a copy of the
To my knowledge,
budget?
yeah.
Well, I mean, I met with the city administrator yesterday, and we were still waiting on it. So can you confirm that, Bruce, so we can go down this? At the
Well,
time I came to your office, I didn't have it in my email. You didn't have it in your email.
I don't know, Phyllis, when did you send that email out?
At least yesterday morning.
Okay. I did print you a copy of well, actually Phyllis printed it out for me, of the nonprofits, and put that in your box as requested. And she also put a copy of the printed budget in your box yesterday afternoon. As far as when it was emailed out, I don't recall right off, but, if she said she sent it out, she sent it out. I don't know if the other members received an email copy.
I received both.
So is it okay to go down it?
Well, you've received a copy. You're saying you didn't have a chance to review.
No, I'm saying I was in the city administrator's office yesterday asking for a copy because I didn't receive it. The city administrator at the time did not have a copy.
But you received the copy yesterday, you're saying?
Yesterday evening, we received it.
So
But I have
you've not had
I have
a
some
chance to
questions
read.
about it.
It
Mayor,
was
is that
sent out,
okay?
it was sent out April 25th at 12:30 PM.
Is this something that we can go over? This is the revised one, Alderman Jones.
Yeah, but
This
if I
is-
could, if I may just interject, since you're the only one and the individuals are willing to meet with you, could you just do it with them? Because I got mine today and I'm up to speed.
Why do we have a budget? I mean, why do we have a workshop if I can't ask any questions?
You can ask questions. You're just asking as far as questions that we've discussed at budget workshop and that you've gotten. You're not
But it's
asking.
changed
and what
since
you're
the
doing
budget
is you're not
workshop.
wanting to ask any specific questions.
No, it's
You said you
changed.
want to go you want to go down each line.
Mayor Cole,
That's different from just asking a
you've
question.
altered this since we've looked at it at the budget workshop.
Yes, I put together the budget.
Okay, so
for this
let me
board to
ask the
review.
questions.
The rest of
There's-
us prepare for the meetings prior to the meeting and ask those questions offline so that we're not making everyone else have to stay till 10 o'clock at night.
Well, I'm sorry.
Well, not even to that point. There's a difference between asking a question about a specific item and wanting to go through each line item, which we've done and we've discussed and even asked for, as far as each person's suggestions and ideas.
In per task that you guys refer me to, they said I'm allowed to ask these questions.
They said that it was appropriate to ask whenever I spoke to them at either workshop as far as discussing it. When it comes to, though, wanting to go line item by line item again, which is what you just said, can we go line item? That's different from asking a question. So do you have a specific question that's not about each one of those as we go down?
I do have a question.
What's
May
your
I?
question?
For the Rutherford County Emergency Management, did we look into that, Chief, with the change how that's set up with the, at this time, they don't have a director, and they're going more towards the emergency coordinator. Does that still keep us in compliance? I checked into that myself, and I'm getting conflicted stories.
It should. That is received off of a, not only are we funding it, each entity, a municipality funds it, from what I understand, and also is funded through the county government. And as well, I would see that it would be fitting for the public safety director. It is posted. They do have an interim director at this time, Tim Hooker. So I think it's legit.
And the increase for the from 15,000 to 20,000 for Box 100, can we go over the decision on increasing that?
Well, my decision was based on what they do and what services they provide to the city. Any other questions?
Yes, and the increase, I just want to go over the increases, if that's okay. There's some that, I guess we went down and some we went up. Is that okay to go over?
Are you wanting to go line item by line item?
I'm
Alderman
wanting to go over the changes that you made, yes.
So you've not had a chance to review those then, from what was given to you yesterday?
No, sir.
So you didn't review before the meeting?
No, sir, no.
That would be highly recommended, and if you want to review those and email me your questions, I'll be glad to answer those.
But it's about the budget. I'm not allowed to email you those questions.
You can email them to Phyllis and Bruce.
But that's not what
they
you
can
just
relay.
said. Can we continue?
So I'm correcting myself, Alderman Church.
Mayor chairs
So,
The mayor just told me to break the sunshine law, so he told me to email that direct to him.
we're going to move on. First reading ordinance 2019-17, an ordinance to amend the Laverne Municipal Zoning Ordinance as it pertains to the overlay district. This received a favorable recommendation from the Planning Commission on April 30th, 2019. So this is an ordinance to essentially remove the auto exemption for buildings in our overlay district. Currently, there's buildings that can, based on their changes, don't have to comply with that. And so this removes that auto exemption. The board can still provide an exemption, but it essentially gets rid of the auto exemption. Any questions about this? Moving on, first reading ordinance 2019-18, an ordinance to amend the Laverne Municipal Code or Municipal Zoning Ordinance as it pertains to signs. This received a favorable recommendation from the Planning Commission on April 30th, 2019. This specifically deals with billboard signs, and other municipalities have restricted them to where new signs can't go up, especially in commercial zones, and that's essentially what this does. Does anyone have any questions about this? Okay, moving on. First reading ordinance 2019-19, an ordinance to amend the Laverne Municipal Zoning Ordinance to remove automobile repair from commercial zoning districts. This received a favorable recommendation from the Planning Commission on April 30th, 2019. And again, this removes auto repair from our commercial zones. Still allows it in industrial, though.
I have a question on this. I was contacted by a local business owner this morning through my city phone. They have an existing business, and they've reached out to codes to add an additional service. Prior to this being voted on, they were told that they weren't allowed to add this service, and they feel that they are being discriminated against. And I told them I would reach out to the board tonight. And, you know, of course, we don't want to be in, we don't want to discriminate against, you know, an African-American that owns a business that's owns a business that's been in our city. So he was wanting to add a service. Adam, I don't know if you're familiar with that.
I think we need to ask who that is because we've got pending litigation with someone that really does not need to be discussed if it's who it's about, so.
Oh, I'm not sure if there's litigations or not. That's why I was bringing it up.
Who had you talked to?
The gentleman that owned the, on Mike Webb's property.
Tees?
Yeah.
They're in an active lawsuit with the city.
So I just relayed their concerns to the board, and they feel that they've,
Evan, I mean, you can,
Yeah, it's not the appropriate forum. You know,
How many of those businesses right now are on commercial? Do we know?
Don't think
I
we know an
couldn't give you an
exact
exact
count.
number, but, you know, there's a lot that's already on commercial.
And they're coming before planning and BOZA on a monthly basis. Is that right? Not right, Mr. Logan?
well, there's no way for us to know as board members who's in litigations and who's not. So when they reach out to us, what do we do? Do we bring it to the board?
No, I was just saying that this is not the
Oh,
forum to
yeah,
discuss
no,
it.
I agree.
I mean,
I
you've
agree.
asked the question, I was just making sure we didn't discuss it and get
I agree.
an issue going, is all I was saying.
I agree.
So if they're already there and established and they're on commercial property, they're gonna be removed?
No, they would be grandfathered in if they're already there and
We're
established.
just not gonna accept anymore?
Correct.
Okay.
In commercial zones. They can still have new ones in industrial.
And I don't have a question, but I do have a comment. These three ordinances right here are really about Laverne, trying to clean up the look of Laverne. It'll take some time to get that all established. Grandfathered businesses are grandfathered, so as long as they're in business there, they can continue business as usual. It's just going forward how we want our city to look. These are overlay districts. This allows us to attract more commercial development, retail development, and you know, it's good for the economic development of the city, and it's also better for the look of the city. So I just wanted to say that these last three ordinances are kind of in relation to what our future we want our future to be in Laverne.
And that's what was discussed at planning, was that this deals with the look and feel for the city.
Yes.
Yeah, I was just asking, it says Laverne Municipal Zoning Ordinance to remove automobile repair from commercial zoning districts. That's why I thought, are we removing them, or we're just not accepting anymore?
Correct. It's just not accepting anymore if this passes.
So if there's an existing business, I think, I sit on the planning board, and we went over this as well. My concern was, it's how the interpretation of the code is. Auto repairs and auto service was two different definitions. And that's where I feel that I'm still confused on what's the difference in auto repair and auto service. I don't know if the board can help me with that or not, but
I didn't bring my planning book here, but I know it's the actual city definition is in the planning book.
I mean, do we have someone from staff that can define that for me?
O's all over it.
Good evening, Mayor and Alderman. So the auto repair would cover any heavy repairs to a vehicle. Each city in Tennessee sort of defines it similarly, but also they've got the freedom to define it how they want. So, again, a tire change, a brake repair, a muffler shop, that's auto service. It's not auto repair. So if there's, I don't want to name any brand names, but a place that you take your car to get the oil changed is not going to be an auto repair center. If they're doing body work, if they're taking the car apart, if they're dropping an engine, heavy stuff, that's auto repair. So
if you have a tire shop located on Murfreesboro Road, and you're doing tires in the front, and you have a garage behind it, and you're doing transmission or engine rebuilds or anything, I don't understand what's the difference with that. That's where I'm concerned with the boards making the decision. I agree 100% over the overlay district. We want a better look for our city. But who's to say someone that wants to do auto repair can't come out to Murfreesboro Road and put up $1 million building and do auto repair?
Well, this ordinance would say that.
Would say what?
Would say that they can't.
They can?
It would say that they can't if this ordinance passes, if they're in a commercial zone.
Even though it could make our city look better. If they were to build a really nice building,
But that's not what we're currently seeing.
So,
And they would still have the ability to do the heavy auto repairs in the industrial division.
Yes, ma'am.
So it just kind of keeps the commercial area, more retail driven.
all right, thank you.
Thank you. Number 18, Resolution 2019-11, resolution to write off uncollected property tax accounts. This is something we do every year. Looks like this year it's about $7,473. Any questions? Okay, moving on to number 20, Resolution 2019-12, a resolution to retain and appoint a city attorney for purposes of fulfillment of the mandate and requirements of Resolution 2019-07, TCA Code 8-47-101, and as otherwise required by law.
Yes, sir.
Evan?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. As you'll recall, the City Council passed a resolution as reflected in the resolution 2019-07, which directed me to perform my statutory duties under the statute that the mayor referenced. I am conducted a preliminary review of the matter, and I want to avoid the possibility of developing a conflict, and so I'm recusing myself from that investigation. And Alex Little from Nashville and his colleagues are here. I'll let Alex can introduce himself, but he's a very well-qualified lawyer, has lots of experience with investigations, and I think would serve the city well in that capacity. And so Mr. Little's here and is happy to introduce himself.
Come up, please.
Yeah.
Good evening. My name's Alex Little. I'm a member of Bo McAllister Norton, a law firm in Nashville, born and raised in Rutherford County. I know it's not fun to have somebody like me here on this sort of agenda item, but I'm happy to talk to you, answer any questions you have about what I would intend to do pursuant to this resolution and how I understand the statute to operate. As you know from your last resolution, there is a statute specifically related to ouster of public officials, and it has a number of steps. The first step is if there is a report that indicates any sort of misconduct on the behalf of an elected official or an official under the statute, which doesn't include constitutional officers, then the city attorney or the district attorney or the county attorney shall conduct an investigation. At the close of that investigation, if there is reasonable cause to believe that the purposes of the statute are met, that there is a basis for removal, then a ouster lawsuit shall be brought. And so it is my understanding at this point that we are just at the initial stage, that there's just been a report, and that our duties, if we were appointed as the city attorney for this purpose, would be to conduct an investigation to determine whether or not that standard is met. I will say I am no stranger to understanding the sort of sensitivities of this. I come with this with no determination that there has been misconduct, and my goal would be to see that the city's interests are protected, both in ensuring that state law is upheld and that everybody gets a fair investigation to the extent that it goes forward. That's how I see the mandate here. I think there is an interest both in, the reason we have this law is because the state has set out a process to remove individuals who have broken the law or have committed misconduct. There's also a very strong protection for elected officials in this statute to ensure that if they have not, and ultimately a lawsuit like this fails, all the costs that that person bears in defending this suit will be borne eventually by the city who initiated the lawsuit. So because of that, I think it's critically important that in an investigative stage, there be a pretty clear determination that misconduct has occurred. At this point, the only thing I know is what I've read in the report provided by Frost, Brown, and Todd. But for almost a decade, I made decisions like this in terms of going forward or not going forward as a member of the Department of Justice. The past 6 years, I've been a defense attorney, so often working on the other side of that, convincing the government that there's not been misconduct. And so I'm very well acquainted with the pros and cons in any sort of investigation like this. What I will say is that if you appoint a city attorney for this purpose, there are powers that that individual has to uncover wrongdoing, including subpoena power, the power to require people to testify under oath. Those can be incredibly revealing, both to determine whether or not there's misconduct or to clear an individual of wrong accusations. And those would be tools that we would use in the interim and try to move very, very quickly to do that. So I'm happy to answer any questions you have. I can explain more about what my understanding of the statutory sort of basis for all this is and give you any assurances that I've got no ties or contacts with anybody here that sways me one way or another. I take my job very seriously. I take my appointment, if I were to be appointed, very seriously. And I care a lot about the role of an individual in this position.
Mr. Little, you're familiar with federal court?
I am.
And had cases through there?
Yes.
Correct?
Yes. No, I've worked in both state and federal courts. I have only been appointed as an officer of the United States. I've never been an officer of the state of Tennessee for purposes of the district attorney or the attorney general.
Okay, thank you. I think that's important to know just simply because there has been the comment of taking this to the federal courthouse on 8th and Broad. So I think that experience helps.
Sure, and I feel just as comfortable down in Murfreesboro and the county courthouse as well, but I certainly feel this is well within the mandate that I understand and feel comfortable with.
So I have a question. Of course, I'm at church. I guess I'm the reason that they're wanting to retain you.
That's my understanding.
That Evan is wanting to retain you to assist with the ouster of my position. So my question is, I just want to make sure I'm correct on this. The board, we voted, I also voted for it, to hire an investigating firm to come in and investigate allegations on many different things.
Yeah.
Their findings was brought back to the board. The board requested Evan to move forward with the, bring it to the district attorney's office. District attorney said he found that I didn't break any criminal laws.
Right.
And said that the city has to handle this on their own. So Evan wants us to hire you to investigate the investigation to oust me?
No, so under the statute, under the ouster statute, it is by law mandated that you shall conduct an investigation if there's been a written report that could lead to a determination of misconduct. The statute is broader than just criminal conduct. It has 5 separate types of behavior that could lead to ouster. So for example, one of them is public intoxication, right? There is a criminal law against public intoxication. It's not treated very seriously by the district attorney's office, but that could be a basis for ouster. That's obviously not an issue here, but there are bases for ouster that are separate apart than criminal statutes. And under the law, I think it's the obligation of the city, when they receive a report like they received from Frost Brown Todd, to at least conduct the investigation. And what I'm telling you is I would not move forward beyond that step until there was reasonable cause to believe that one of the statutory elements had been met. And I would certainly tell you that, I'd tell your attorney that, I'd tell, obviously in an open forum, that I take that sort of, basically you open the gate or not at that point very seriously.
And if the city moves forward with their ouster and they fail, would the city be in a position to have civil liabilities held against them?
It's not separate civil liabilities. It's built in the actual statute that if, for example, the city were to pursue an ouster against you, which would mean that I would have found at that point that there was reasonable basis, it would go before a judge. You would have the right to a jury trial. At that point, if you were to win the jury trial, the city could be charged your reasonable costs and attorney's fees. There would not be a separate sort of lawsuit. Mr. Church, I'll tell you here in a public forum, and I take that very seriously because I have never, when I served as a prosecutor, would ever subject anybody to a criminal prosecution unless I believed that there was facts and law to support that prosecution. And I certainly would not subject you or any other member of this body to an ouster suit unless I thought that it was necessary. And at this point, I can tell you I have no facts one way or another to determine that's the case. That would be the purpose of the investigation.
I guess I can say just make sure your notes show that this board won't even let me ask a question.
I understand.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
$365 an hour. I am in the wrong profession.
Sir, yes, and I will tell you, those are unfortunately discounted rates based on what we charge in many other ways.
Wow.
The practice of law is not a cheap one, and unfortunately not. I'm also not taking every penny of that home. Law firms, particularly in Nashville, are not cheap. But I understand, but I will say, I understand that that is a serious concern and that this is city dollars and those are taxpayer dollars eventually will be paying us. And we're not going to go out there flipping every stone we can just to flip a stone.
So what is the retainer?
There's not a retainer. We would bill for our work as we go forward.
Are you billing for tonight?
I have not, no. I mean, I haven't been retained yet, so I don't think I can.
Good. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Little.
Thank you all.
Number 20, motion to approve a real estate contract for the purchase of real property along Stones River Road and east near Schreibman Boulevard, described as tax map 14 parcel 5, consisting of approximately 4.5 acres, tax map 14 parcel 5.02, consisting of approximately 16.81 acres, and tax map 14 parcel 14.03, consisting of approximately 2.43 acres. This is the property that was voted on to allow for negotiations, and we're able to come back with actually both properties. Any questions?
Do you have a dollar amount?
Yes, that is in the contract. I believe this is the one right off the roundabout, so this one would have been $900,000.
And who owns that property?
That would be Amnon Schreibman.
Is this the same property that Mr. Schreibman wanted to rezone and it was denied?
Yes. Wanted to rezone for townhomes.
And our purpose for purchase of this property is for,
It was in the ordinance public, as far as public works, was discussed.
so it is to relocate Public Works?
Yes. That was part of the, part of that negotiated, resolution that we had approved.
And the existing Public Works building is, what will happen to it?
That would be up for this board to determine.
So they came back, Bruce, was it around 700,000 to renovate the Public Works building?
I believe it was in that neighborhood, yes, sir.
So 700,000 to renovate Public Works. We have defined that even during the May floods, the Public Works building did not flood.
I haven't seen any evidence to that. I've
Well,
just
no,
heard
we-
you say that.
No, FEMA said it didn't flood, and the city administrator said it didn't flood, and the fire department said it didn't flood.
I'm sorry, I never heard in the meeting either one of them. Bruce, did you ever say it flooded?
I don't recall saying that, no.
Did you, Clark? Did you state that in our meeting?
I haven't never been in that discussion.
Okay.
And then
Bruce, in May, in the May floods, did the Public Works building flood?
I honestly do not know.
So now we don't even know if it flooded.
I mean, I wasn't down there. I mean, you know, Mr. Russell was down there.
I wasn't here at the time, but they said the lower parking lot, they'd come up,
Yeah.
leaving the building, from what I was told.
Thank you, Michael. It was the highest level. I understand
Property
that.
flooded, but not the building. Okay.
Right,
All that, yes.
right. So
So the property flooded.
what I'm trying to illustrate to the board, that we have a piece of property that is paid for, that for 700,000, we can renovate the whole building, go in, talking to different people in the city, and make it brand new. Make a brand new structure on the existing property for 700,000. And we want to spend right at 900,000 for a piece of land to build a new Public Works. What is a new Public Works building going to cost?
Well, you said you're saying that 700,000 to build a brand new building. That was to renovate that building.
To renovate,
not
but
to
make it brand
build
new.
a brand new one.
It would,
It also doesn't address the space issues.
It's still a 30-year-old pre-engineered structure. It's actually kind of toward the end of its lifespan. Basically, they would replace the sheet metal that needs to be replaced, wire, bring things into general conformance with code, but, you know, it's, you know, like fixing up a 1980s vehicle. It's still a 1980s vehicle at its heart, and it doesn't make the building any larger either.
And that 700,000 doesn't address as far as adding additional space, additional land to that, which was illustrated in the space needs study. I did go back through looking at 2004, 2005, and 2006 agendas for the board to see if I could find the space needs assessment discussion that you had mentioned. You'd read through a 2005 space needs assessment. Couldn't find any votes on that except for in 2006 where a space needs assessment was voted down not to do.
No, we had one, Bruce. What year did we have one?
I'm not aware of one since I've been here.
Other than the most recent
Well,
one.
we had one in, it was the Dwayne Hicks era. I don't know what year that was, but it's when the architects came in to talking about adding on the city hall and everything else. So what year was that? I'm sorry, I may be wrong for the year.
I'm not aware. I was in a different role at that point. I'm not aware of a study being done.
But you're the city recorder.
Yes, sir. And I'm not aware of a study being done.
So you're not aware of the guys coming in, doing the assessment on City Hall, 2 stories?
I don't recall one, no.
Okay, all right, thank you. So I just want to remind the board that $900,000 just for the property and estimates, you know, what were you estimating, Adam, for the building?
It really depends on what the board wants to build. It could be as low as $2 million. Could be if we plan for a 30 or 40 year type structure that would be adequate for, you know, the growth of the city that we've seen at 3% a year, maybe more toward 4 or 5 million. But that's all discretion of the board.
But that has not been planned out yet, correct?
Those are just engineers' estimates from
Just off the
this
top of your
chair.
head.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Moving on. Number 21, motion to approve a real estate contracts for the purchase of real property along Stones River Road described as tax map 14 parcel 1 consisting of approximately 3.89 acres, tax map 14 parcel 2 consisting of approximately 3.44 acres, and tax map 14 parcel 3 consisting of approximately 14.22 acres. And this is for the property further down Stones River Road. You should all have in here the different contracts for this. And you can see that on the map here as well. This would be towards the top, the yellow sections. Any questions on this?
And what's the price on that property?
Total for all 3 parcels, I believe it was 1.3 million?
135.
135.
Who owns that?
This would be, per your packet, Roy Samuel Batson.
I did see that in there.
This, speaking to the real estate agent, the intent that they had with this property is to go, they said if they could, R3 or R2 and build this out as subdivision, so new homes. They're looking, I think they said 80 to 100 homes at R2.
But it's zone R1.
Currently, yes.
So it would have to go in front of the planning and zone, you know, planning and everything else to be rezoned to do that.
Right.
So at this time, it's not possible for them to do that, correct?
To build R2, no. They could start right this moment at R1.
That's
Start
right.
building.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we're not trying to have the fear factor for the residents that,
we're
that this is
not.
going to happen. So we're 1.3 plus the 900,000. So we're $2 million in just property purchases. And this looks like the same property that I guess former Mayor Waldron was involved with wanting to purchase.
Well, that section, the Batson property, wasn't part of that because they, at that point, hadn't even discussed selling to the city. That was after the elections.
No, I guess the other property owned by Mr. Schreiman was, and that's the same property that we campaigned that it wasn't a good idea to purchase.
And there is at least one family almost in the center of this, the McGowans, which I don't know if everyone has seen their email. Nikki McGowan had emailed the board expressing support for this, and they're probably going to be one of the most impacted lots with this.
Yes, I also got an email from her. I had correspondence with her today. Good conversation. She is for this. And, you know, of course, if the city was to buy everything around them, it would enhance the value of their property too. So, but yes, she is for it.
Any other questions?
I just want to re-illustrate that it is, both of these parcels are zone R1, and one of the parcels was denied by planning and zoning with the assistance of the community that came out to keep it zoned R1. A $2 million purchase and a number that could, we don't even have numbers. I mean, you're talking, to get the property ready is another $2 million. And,
What's the basis for that?
well, I'm just trying to do some simple math here. You know, I mean,
Well, I mean, that's not simple math. You're saying that
we're
to
not,
get the
we're not in the
property
business
ready,
to
it's-
grow government. We're in the business to,
I don't think anyone's mentioned growing government, but again, you just threw out $2 million just to get the property ready. I'm just trying to understand that basis as to,
I'll ask the
again,
engineer.
not to cause
Adam,
people to have unnecessary fear.
just the utilities to go in this property, drainage and everything on the, can you give us, you were allowed to give an estimate on a building.
Those were included in.
So, building, it was in, so we can go in there and prep the land and build a building for $3 million?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Any other questions? Moving on to number 22, motion to appoint or remove board or committee members. We have the Senior Citizens Advisory Committee. We have 4 terms expiring 4/30 of 19. We have 1 term vacant. Commissioner Gurley has resigned from this board. I spoke with our newly sworn in Commissioner Blair, and he has expressed interest in this. So this will be on the agenda for tomorrow. And of course, all of the existing board members have expressed interest in staying on the board. And this is being advertised on Channel 3 as well. Economic Development, I have requested that Danny Jones be removed from the board. And once the board votes on that, that position will be advertised on Channel 3. Any questions?
The removal of Danny Jones, what's the reasoning?
Well, I've got concerns as far as looking out for the welfare for the city with economic development versus his own.
Can you explain that a little bit better?
Well, no, that's the best I would say I can explain it.
So he's looking out for his personal interest instead of the city's interest,
In my view.
in your view?
He's been on there a long time, hasn't he?
And then this next one, Greenway Advisory Committee, this is just an FYI. We have 2 terms expiring at the end of this month, Ryan Bizzari and Laura Davidson. And both of those will be contacted to see if they wish to remain on that board. Also, Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee, we have 2 terms expiring at the end of the month, Debbie Hewen and Bob Simon. Again, both will be contacted at the end of the month. Moving on, number 23, discussion, City Administrator Performance Evaluation. Cheryl?
Good evening, Mayor and Aldermen. I have the distinct honor of reviewing the City Administrator Performance Evaluation for 2019 with you. This section, performance evaluation, is in part, and it consists of 10 sections or 10 items, which Mr. Richardson has been evaluated. And the first is individual characteristics. The overall score is 4.17. Section 2, professional skills and status. Overall score, 4.20. Section 3, relations with elected members of governing body. The overall score, 4.25. Section 4, policy execution. The total score is 4.20. Section 5, reporting, 4.20. Section 6, citizens relations, 4.25. Section 7, staffing, 4.20. Section 8, supervision, 4.25. Section 9, fiscal management, 4.25. And the last section, community, the overall score 4.25, with the total score for all sections as in an average of 4.22. So as you can see, the evaluation is well above average on a scale from 1 to 5, with that score falling at 4.22. And we are pleased to say that Mr. Richardson has demonstrated proficiency in serving in his role as city administrator for the city of Laverne, based on the evaluation that has been provided via the Board of Aldermen. Are there any questions?
I just have a comment. I sent Ms. Sherrill a email responding to her question. I did not intervene in the review on Mr. Richardson's performance due to the situation that's ongoing legally. I thought it would be fair to step out of that situation, so the city administrator would have a fair without possibly bias.
Any other questions? Thank you, Cheryl. Bruce, thank you for your hard work.
Thank you.
Discussion item number 24, Citizens Forum. Alderman Jones.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. The reason I brought this forward, I was speaking with another colleague of mine, and we were discussing some of the surrounding cities as it pertains to Citizens Forum. And as all of you know, we're getting to a point now where I know that the Citizens Forum has been ongoing for quite some time, and I understand the importance of the Citizens Forum. And the first question, one of the first responses that came up was, if we do away with the Citizens Forum, is that taking away any of the citizens' right to their speech? And the answer to that is all of us are assigned cell phones. The numbers are advertised for anyone that would like to discuss any matter. I guess my main concern is if we don't, we've got to either, if we're going to continue with the Citizens Forum, we're going to have a sense of decorum as opposed to having individuals, grown individuals sitting up here being talked down to. And I just don't think it's appropriate in today's time with this to continue. So I would just wanted to put this out there so it's something that we can think about in the future with the way that we perform this Citizens Forum.
Any other discussion?
So I have a question, Alderman Jones. So are you asking to take away the Citizens Forum in the future?
I'm asking just to have a consideration as to modifying it or eliminating it.
What modifications would you add?
To instruct the individual that comes up about any negative or any approaches to the board members in a negative manner. We can all be civil whenever we discuss anything.
I think we've seen where over the last few years, the Citizens Forum at times has been co-opted, whether it's tax on me, tax on Alderman Jones, Vice Mayor Brown, where, even poop has been thrown at this board. So it's trying to come up with some rules, some house rules, so to say, if someone's got issues with city business, they still have that ability to come forward and speak about that. But if they want to sit there and say, Alderman, no, we don't like you.
I got big, broad
And-
shoulders. It don't bother me.
It sounds like to me you guys are taking away the First Amendment rights.
Well, no, at this point, it's a discussion. What action item have you seen?
No, you haven't taken any actions, but that's just what it.
I mean, if we stop it, how are we taking any of their rights?
Alderman Jones, I've been on that side, and you spoke to citizens just as bad as they spoke to you in the
When?
past.
When?
It's on video, sir.
Well, I'd like for you to find it.
I'll be happy to.
I only I only give what I get. And I've never spoken, I have the ability to hold back. I mean, you haven't heard me speak bad, Alderman Church. You
I
heard me
have.
speak bad.
I have.
No, you haven't.
Well, this isn't here for
I
arguing.
mean,
this isn't just a discussion
I'm
item
just
at
bringing
this
it
point.
forward. I'm just bringing it forward and giving it someone something to think about. It's a lot of way for people to communicate, and you can communicate in different ways without insulting people or attacking people.
I think in this country, we can go to, I personally can go to the Senate floor at the state level and speak to my state house representatives in a pro for them or in an action. I mean, we have sit-ins at the Capitol. I mean, the people are exercising their rights. And we have a sergeant at arms that's in the meetings with 4 other officers. I mean, we're very well protected.
4 other officers.
Sometimes there's 4, Jason. Sometimes there's 5. So I feel that when we start trying to censor the citizens, whether it's good or bad, I mean, I've been on both sides of it. I've been on that side, coming in and addressing this board with positives, and I've been on that side addressing this boards with negatives. And I've also sat up here and felt positives, and I've also sat up here and felt negatives. But I can't imagine in 2019 for someone to even contemplate on restricting an individual coming to their governing body with a question or a concern or even a comment. I just feel that it's an embarrassment. It's embarrassing to even.
I don't think anyone mentioned that part as
I'm
far
reading
as
it.
question,
I'm reading
concerns,
it.
or comments. I think what was the concern is as far as some of the way that people are attacking other people.
You know, if a citizen comes up here and says, Matt Church, you're a liar, that's that citizen's right. If a citizen comes up here and says, Mayor Cole, you're a liar, that's that citizen's right. You know, if a citizen comes up here and says, you know, the potholes in the street are growing corn stalks, you guys aren't doing a good job, that's their right. And they also can come up and praise us. I just feel that, I mean, reading this, this is
the current municipal code.
Well, I understand that, but we're wanting to take this away. This was a restriction. I remember when this wasn't even on here.
No one's proposed taking anything away. It's a discussion item at this point. There's no action again.
Oh, I know there's no action. That's why we're discussing it.
So do you feel it's a person's right to throw feces at us?
Sir, I can tell you that that's never happened to you sitting at this board.
So feces have never been thrown at this board?
Nope.
Okay. That's a matter of
So
record.
I think,
It's never happened.
how would that just be something that's rewritten and then the board would vote on it? Is that how that would kind of work?
If something's come up
Okay,
with,
so,
yes.
which I think is fair. The board's always voting, but now, as someone that's sitting up here and these citizens are paying, even though it's minute, paying my salary and needing a voice for them, everybody handles things different. I know that you and Matt handle things different as opposed to me and maybe Vice Mayor Brown. That's just the way it is. Unfortunately, you can't have it both ways. There's going to be some people that's going to come up here and they're going to have some good things to say to us, and we encourage them to come up here. But there's also going to be some people that's got some bad things to say, and I encourage them to come up here. As board members, we need to have thick skin, broad shoulders. Don't be simple-minded or insecure. Take it for what it's worth, wear it, own it, and move on, and let the citizens of Laverne speak their piece. And if that's where they want to do it, then let them have at it.
And that's exactly what I'm saying. That's why I didn't say I want to abolish it. I want the board to sit and think about what we can do to modify it. Because the last time that we had someone speaking their mind, there were children in here, a whole troop.
I think that,
I just don't think that that's appropriate.
I think in that particular instance, and if you'll ask Mayor Cole, I asked him quietly, I said, why don't you dismiss, you remember me asking you?
That's a modifying, maybe that's something that we can put in here. For each time
If
that
we're
we
gonna have-
something like that, maybe that's a modification.
And I have no problem with that, sir. If there's gonna be people coming up to speak, and we've got Cub Scouts, Girl Scouts, or whatever, they need to wait out in the hallway, let the sergeant at arms bring them in afterwards. I don't have no problem with that whatsoever.
My question to that is, I was at the meeting. I didn't hear any profanity.
I didn't hear anybody mention profanity.
Well, I'm just
Those
asking.
children, the
just asking.
actual Cub Scout or the Scout leaders had stated that those children were scared from that instance, from the way those people were talking. There was no profanity, but with what they were saying.
I mean,
they
the
were-
last budget workshop, Alderman Jones, you used profanity towards me.
With no kids in here, though.
Right, but you did.
I don't do it in front of kids. I call you anything, but not in front of kids.
So, so do we hold that as, I mean, are we going to, at what level are we going to control? Are we going to have robots coming in here?
If the budget allows.
It's all about making sure you're protected down there.
Amazon's got them all day. Thank you for the time, man.
Sorry, I do have a comment I want to add. Here's my thoughts on dismissing the children. This is a televised meeting that should be family-friendly at all times by everyone that is in attendance, whether it be on this board or in this audience or any member of the city staff. So we shouldn't have to dismiss children from the board meetings. We should dismiss the adult that's acting like a child from the board meetings. And so what I think that we need to do is not eliminate the citizens' comments, but draw such structure around it. Because, for instance, when you go to the courthouse in Murfreesboro, you have to conduct yourself with a certain level of dignity. You have to wear a certain level of attire. They will not allow you to bring a purse in. You have to have on suitable clothing. And they enumerate each item that you need to follow. And if you don't show up in that way, and I'm not saying our dress code is a problem. I'm just saying that, there's plenty of ways to address the board and let us listen to you. And I'm happy to hear feedback from any member of the community, either on email or on my cell phone, text me. I think anyone on the board would. And it's not that we don't have thick skin. It's that, oh gosh, we've had people that came up just to talk about Facebook issues that the city does not control. So we need to draw some parameters around the expected behavior of people that participate in the forum. And I'm fine with listening to any problem that they have with the city and the way it's conducting its business. But I think that we can draw a little structure around how that's supposed to look.
So who would make if let's say a citizen wanted to come in and they wanted to, so they fill out their paper, they put their subject down? Who defines their subject matter as proper or not?
I don't think it's a matter of the subject would be proper if it's about city business.
So is it presentation?
I think
I'm asking.
I think that we just need to draw parameters that would give the mayor the authority to call the sergeant of arms to dismiss someone that can't comply with basic, conduct themselves in a basically professional way, using, decorum and just professionalism.
Bruce, has there in the past ever been any other ways that we've done citizens forum as a board?
Well, years ago, I don't remember when it changed exactly, but it used to be a part of the meeting itself. It used to be at the very end of the agenda. It was the last thing, basically. I don't remember if it was before or after the Mayor Alderman comments, but it was at the very end of the meeting. And it was taken out of the meeting itself and put as a separate, I don't want to call it a meeting, but a separate session, where there weren't minutes and, it might be aired on Channel 3, depending on if it wasn't anything that we couldn't air. Because we did have some rough times back in the day, people saying things, doing things, even back then, that we didn't really want to air on Channel 3 just because of the content. So it was taken out at one time. The only other change that I can think of is in regards to how people would sign up. You would have to sign up like before 3 o'clock the Thursday before the meeting, okay? So if you wanted to talk at the workshop, you had to sign up by then. If you wanted to talk at the meeting itself, you had to sign up at that same time. And it would be the same agenda essentially. So, you know, people would sign up and then it would come up at the workshop, and a lot of times they would still talk, but sometimes they would say, I'll defer until Tuesday's meeting, and they would talk at the meeting only. But there was more time in between the sign up and when they could actually speak. But those are the only major changes that I can think of over the years in regards to Citizens Forum.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Moving on.
I just feel that we're trying to censor the what people are feeling. You know, we have people for us, we have people not for us, we have people for progress. I mean, there's Facebook, you know, is an issue. If someone wants to come in here and talk about Facebook, that's their right.
But that's not something that the city directly can control, so it's not the forum for them to even bring it to us.
But if
There's
we're,
nothing
as
we
government
can do
officials,
as
if we're on
government officials.
Facebook and they're questioning us, I mean, I get stopped in Kroger's and asked, why did I do this or why did I do that? And I answer the question. And some people are for it and some people aren't for it, but they get the truth. They get how I feel. I don't sugarcoat it. I say, this is why I feel this way. This property. I mean, there's a lot of people in the community for the purchase. There's a lot of people in the community that's not for the purchase. And I treat both groups the same way. So I think if I mean, we're trying to,
I think we have a great system here in Laverne as far as a lot of things. A lot of it needs to be fixed. I don't think the Citizens Forum, in my opinion, is, other than maybe if we got small children or groups, is stay out there until after the Citizens Forum. Let's take our compliments or our beat downs like adults and move on, bring the children in and let's go with it. But I don't think it's broke. I don't think we should fix it. I think we got bigger fish to fry and more stuff to worry about.
But the thing is, it's not just the children that are in this room. This is televised, so it goes to the children in their homes. And, you know, who knows, if mom's cooking dinner and dad's mowing the yard, the kids might be watching the Access channel, which should be child-friendly at all times.
have you watched the nightly news? I mean,
I'm assuming that's a rhetorical question.
well, I'm just saying, you know, we have different levels of government that are being challenged on a daily basis, and people are calling them out. And I mean, the worst thing to do in a community is to try to censor them, and this is exactly what you're trying to do.
How am I requesting a censor on anyone? You can call us, you can email us, you can stand there and say what you want. I'm just saying, don't ask someone to grow a pair when you think that when you're upset with them. I'm asking you, do not sling feces, whoever did it, because no one up here did, at us when you get upset.
I'm glad you
That's
clarified
all
that.
I'm asking. That's all I'm asking.
And
I'm not censoring anyone.
I don't think there's any action item on here that mentions censoring. It's a discussion again. So,
We'll just
moving
have to
on
wait and
to
see
number 25, discussion for department reports. Alderman Jones.
The next one, I want to censor these again. The department reports. The only thing about the department reports that I wanted to bring up is lately we get graphs, we get reports from everyone, and they're read to us verbatim. We should be able to go ahead and just read through them, just like we do with the budget. And if there's a specific question for either one of the department heads, ask them to come up at that time, as opposed to having all of them come up and read everything verbatim.
And then there's also other instances I would think to include would be like events with Parks and Rec, events with the library, besides just individual questions.
Exactly.
So now you don't want department heads to stand up here and discuss what's going on? Like how many gallons of water we're losing, or how much overtime we have, or how
Unlike
much?
you, Alderman Church, I read my reports when I get them sent to me.
Yeah, I read
Know
them
when I'm
too.
coming.
I read them too. I did not get.
Forgot this one.
Oh, I didn't forget.
I understand.
So, I don't know what you guys are afraid of about governing, but we govern for the people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And we are trying to eliminate giving them information.
No.
Let me finish talking.
No, we
We're trying to eliminate any and all information.
It's right there.
So, if the department heads can't get up here and talk about it, how does the public find out
They
about it?
can. They can get up here, and all you have to do, as an alderman, is say, I read this report on the fire department. I've got a question, and I think the people would like to know. Chief, could you come up here and explain this?
So surrounding cities, Mayor Cole, for some reason we use surrounding cities as the norm. I attend other meetings across the state. It's pretty standard for the department heads.
Vergne doesn't do it. That's
It
pretty,
is
that's
pretty
right
standard.
there. They don't do it. That's where I got this from.
Okay.
I'm just trying to do like
Gotcha.
some of the other people out there.
Yeah.
Bruce, are you aware if Murfreesboro does this, or if Eagleville?
I don't know, honestly. I don't watch enough of other cities' meetings to really know what all they do.
Okay.
You guys you're more running things like a regime than, aldermen and,
I take offense to that.
What? How is having
send
a
it to
discussion?
my attorney.
I might.
How is having discussion a regime? That doesn't make sense.
Just move on with your meeting, Mayor.
No, I'd hate for you to limit my freedom of speech on that.
Oh, you guys are limiting everyone's freedom of speech.
So moving on, discussion, office hours, work schedules, Alderman Jones.
That's the other thing that I wanted to discuss. I've had a lot of people within the city workers come to me, and they were told that the office hours were changing. I've just found a little bit out about this last week, and I would like to discuss it just to see where it stands and where we are with it, because we've established the 410s. People take a regular day off. They're able to get stuff done. You cut back on sick call or, things that you need to go and do. And also the citizenry have a little bit longer to be able to come in and do stuff if they've got the 410s. I'd just like to know what's the status on that and where we're going, what we're going toward with it.
Sure. Whenever, shortly after the November elections, I met with both our city administrator and assistant city administrator, what was it, about a week, 2 weeks after the elections, and we sat down and spoke about this. One of the things I told them is I would like for the city to go back to a 5-day work week. Now, I do believe in giving everyone proper notice, because there's people who have children in after-school programs or daycares, and beginning that at the beginning of the fiscal year. I've also we had, I believe, 2 meetings here at City Hall with city staff, just going through some things about the schedule, and people were asking about it. Ultimately, it's trying to make it more accessible for everyone. If you have, give you just hypotheticals, because we don't want to use just actual instances, but let's say hypothetically a big box company wants to come in and start working on permits on Friday. They're not able to do that, and they have to wait till Monday to do that. Now, is there room that some departments that aren't customer facing could work 4 days a week, 10-hour shifts, where they're not sitting here, at City Hall, so to say? Is there room for that? I think there is. That would be kind of a discussion with the directors. I know several departments, Garland being a big lobby person for that, have asked about lobbying that, and I know recently, I believe Zora just emailed as well. So there's back and forth. There's some employees that they don't care. They just want to know whether they're working 4 days a week or 5 days a week. There's some that prefer the 4-day. There's some that prefer the 5. I prefer the ones that are customer facing to be 5, at the very least.
Mayor, would it make a difference if the city was open 5 days a week, but yet the individual employees still had 4 10s and just rotated them for full coverage throughout the week?
That's not necessarily a problem. It's just making sure that departments have staff for that, because I don't know if that would even be possible with, as an example, for stormwater. You've Adam, how many staff members do you have on that?
Well, there's 6 members of our crew and a staff, my stormwater engineer, basically maintain coverage where there'd be a professional engineer in residence every day of the week, and my stormwater crews actually operate more like public works, so they've expressed a pretty heavy interest in staying at 410, so being that they mostly do labor and there's some benefits for that type of actual physical work done 410s, you know, that's kind of what we were trying to maintain with them. As far as the codes part, which I'm just filling in for Randolph, and I'm somewhat poor substitute on some of these things, we do have 2 admins up front, so they could potentially split shifts, and we could be open 5 tenants, which would, I think, be potentially more beneficial in some ways.
You know, the thing for me is that I've talked to a lot of the employees, and I've talked to, I don't know, probably 20 employees at just various levels. Some of them, I've talked to every director about it, but also probably 20 employees in different departments that are completely opposed to going back to 810s, or I'm sorry, 5/8s.
810s?
5/8s, yeah, we'll work them. No, 5/8s. They just really like the 410s, and it works good for their schedule, their work-life balance, and also extends the hours for the citizens. And they say, you know, having that one day where you can go to the bank and go to a doctor's appointment or something like that's really handy. Plus, it saves on some of their child care. On the other hand, I have only spoke to one person that was opposed to the 410s and wanted to have 5/8s again. So, just for me, from the employee standpoint, it seems to be a pretty popular program, the 410s. Now, from the citizens, I think the first couple of months there was a little, I don't know if I really like this. I have to kind of adjust for it. But I think everybody's kind of gotten used to it now, just the same that, I know certain days I can go to the dump and certain days the dump's closed. And, after a while you kind of get used to it. And even if it's inconvenient, it's open on days that you can go. So I just wanted to throw that out there. It's a benefit to our employees to at least hear their voice.
Yeah, I want to make a statement on this, just so that it's recorded, that it is normal for vice mayors and aldermen to reach out to the staff and ask questions about operations. I just want to make sure that, thank you for clarifying that for me.
Does anyone else have any comments on the work schedule?
So from February or March last year up until, just a month or so ago, but I talked to a lot of citizens, both face-to-face, phone, text, Facebook, Twitter. I understand the employees want to, 100%. I've talked to a couple of employees that would rather have 5 days, and I said, well, why in the world would you want that? And they said, well, to be honest with you, by the time we get off work at 5:30, I'm exhausted, and I feel like the last couple of hours of my job, I've not been 100%. And I said, well, I can respect that. So the bottom line here is, do we pull for the employees? Do we pull for the citizens? Do we meet in the middle? Who's making our city go? So it's going to be a tough decision.
Well, there's room for compromise too. I mean, I think that we have great directors that are able to effectively manage their own departments, and maybe they could, make a schedule according to their staff's needs and according to their department needs. And I think that they've done a great job to this point of doing that.
Moving on. Discussion, water billing in the rears. Alderman Church.
This is something that we had a small discussion, and Phyllis was going to fill us in on our Director of Finance, and on where we're coming to a critical moment with our water billing, and that's why I have it on the agenda, so she can get us all up to speed.
What critical moment?
We're just going to have Phyllis explain it to us.
It was requested of us during the last workshop to put together some information pertaining to how we bill water or utilities in the rears. I have worked with Allison, and I'm going to bring her up in just a minute to introduce her to everyone and let her do some talking. But we have kind of put our thoughts together and come up with some information for everyone that we'd like to share. And I'll go ahead and bring Allison up. And I've got some handouts for you. For those of you that haven't met Allison, Allison is the manager of the utility billing department. Allison has a staff of 4 right now?
Three right now.
Okay.
We'll get somebody in.
Allison's been with us for about 6 years. She's made a tremendous change in the utility billing department. She has streamlined that department, introduced lots of new processes and procedures. And of course, one of the hurdles that we've had in that department is the billing and how it's in arrears and how it affects the customers and, how conflicted and how confused customers get sometimes whenever you try to explain to them what they're actually paying for. Allison has this information that you have in front of you. I'm going to turn it over to Allison. She's very well knowledgeable of that department, of course, and can answer a lot more than I can.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Aldermen. I've basically put together here, I don't know if, okay, just a brief history in the beginning of how we got to the point, or how we started and how we got to the point where we're at now. Obviously, many years ago, the reading of the meters were done manually. Initially, it started with pen and paper, believe it or not. And then they transitioned to handheld devices. That process took about a week to read the meters. The following week was spent doing rereads, double checking, that sort of thing. And then there was another 2 weeks in between that was spent prepping and scrubbing data, as well as working on the other billing cycles. So essentially, they, 1 week they were reading a cycle, but they were also doing rereads for the cycle from the week before. The next week they were doing rereads for that cycle, but reading another one. So 4 different cycles is what we work with. So constantly, doing something in each cycle on a weekly basis. So for example, in our cycle 3, they would read from March the 1st to March the 5th. That would actually be for the consumption period of February the 1st to March the 5th. So that's where your 28 to 32 day cycle comes from. The reread period would be the following week, which would be March the 8th through March the 12th. From the 15th of March to the 27th of March, it was essentially, that time period was used to prep, scrub data, again, also work on the other billing cycles, plus the day-to-day operations. That bill would be generated on the 1st of April, and it would be set 30 days later, due on the 30th. So essentially what that means is that when I issue a bill and the customer gets it in their hand, that bill is for a service period that was a month ago. However, we have a 30-day time frame between the time it's issued and the time that it's due. So by the time they come to pay the bill, it's another 30 days. So when they're coming to pay, it's 2 months ago that they use that usage. And so that can become very confusing because most people may not even look at it or review it until they come to make the payment, and it's a little higher than usual, and they generally immediately think to the previous month. They're not thinking 2 months behind. So that's created a lot of confusion and misunderstanding. Also, leaks can occur over time. Something that I know that we have tried our very best to implement with the tools that we do have in the staff with Mike's department is notifying customers as soon as possible, as soon as feasible, if they have a higher than usual consumption. But that still doesn't solve all of those problems. There's 4 of them and 13,000 of customers, and so
we've tried to implement a few things to kind of alleviate that, but, you know. Currently, we do read electronically, meaning that they can drive by in a vehicle. Each of our meters are fitted with an electronic device that shoots a signal to a laptop in a technician's truck as they drive by. We purchased those meters and the compatible software in May of 2013. The transition to AMR on the residential side was complete by May of 2015. I know that we took on the task of transitioning those meters ourselves. We pretty much did that in-house. So as far as meter technicians, public works staff, I know we had some firefighters help. I changed a few out myself. We did that by 2015. Commercial and industrial, which is a whole nother daunting task, was actually completed and fully AMR by February of 2018. That process took a long time for identifying, typing, determining what should be there, what shouldn't be there, what's the scope of the business, does this meter work for that? You know, does the meter that they have currently, does it need to be changed? Does it need to be upgraded? So there was a lot of work done just to get to the point of doing that transition, but we went full AMR for the most part in February of 2018. So at this point, we do read, I don't want to say 100% because like I said, for the most part, there are some industrial meters that we still may read manually for one reason or another. We read, and it takes about a week after we read to have that information ready for me to do my part, which is the final scrubbing, the final walkthrough determination, and then issue the billing. So at this point, we, are officially ready and have been, for a while, for at least I would say since we went full AMR as residential wise, we've had the capability to read currently, meaning that they could read meters and then a week later I could essentially issue the bill for that cycle. In doing that, some of the benefits of doing that, it would lessen the confusion of the consumption period like I spoke about earlier. It would bring the billing current, obviously that's a given. It would also align the billing with the water distribution reporting, which would help with water loss tracking and things like that. So that would help us stay on top of our water loss numbers. And also one of the things that billing in arrears creates is a delay in your initial bill as well as a delay in your final bill. It takes about 6 to 8 weeks to get that first bill when you move into a new property. A lot of times, generally people are still there in 6 to 8 weeks, but they're just a little confused as to why they haven't gotten a bill yet, so we'll get phone calls for that. The biggest problem that this creates is really in the final billing. Some of the things that we have incorporated in our daily tasks to try to alleviate this a little bit is you're going to get your final bill 4 to 6 weeks after you've already left that property. So you've already moved into a new property. You're probably getting your first bill there, assuming that you move outside of Laverne. You're not thinking about previous water. Or when you come and disconnect your service and you pay a bill, you assume I've paid my account in full. So that creates a lot of unpaid, balances or confusion in that realm. Why would I be getting a bill this, 2 months, 3 months later? Some of the things that we've incorporated in our daily task is, we send final bill notices. So we have a spreadsheet that that'll highlight addresses that have gone a certain period of time since we've issued that final bill, and we have yet to receive payment, and we'll send them another notice. We did a pilot, if you will, on that over the last 6 to 8 months, and I think we've got about a 41% return on that. Which is pretty good, but it still requires us to go that extra step. Some of the options that the board would have to decide upon if they, so choose to bring this up. We did sit down with local government and go over other, a vast or a wide variety of ideas and options to see what we were capable of. We also took, municipal code into consideration, what that would allow us to do and not, et cetera. And we essentially narrowed it down to 3 options. Obviously, one would be that the city would assume cost of 1 month service for all customers. Another option would be a single bill for 2 months worth of consumption. Basically, we would skip a reading period and we would issue a bill for 2 months worth of consumption versus 1. That would bring us immediately current. And then a third option would be what I think you also may have gotten a copy of is a graduated scale to bring the billing current over approximately about 12 to 14 months. At the top is what this is example, so this is not necessarily real numbers. It's as close to real dates as possible. But at the top portion of the chart that you've received, this is the way that it would currently work if we continue doing it the way that we do now. And then below is the way that we could potentially graduate to billing current. And so you'll see there's a read date, new bill date, new due date. So in talking with Phyllis and with local government and, reviewing a few things, those are the 3 options that we have come up with that, may be suitable. But again, that would be at your discretion. And have any questions?
So if we didn't touch it, what would happen? If we didn't do anything, is there anything, is there, what's the negatives with that?
Well, the negatives would be the opposite of what I said the benefits were. We haven't lost anything. We're not out anything. I know it would just stay the same. It would be confusing. It would require follow-up for final bill notices.
Right.
It would require a little bit more work in the aspect of, water loss and determining, when the water treatment plant gives us numbers, we also have to take into consideration that my billing is reporting a different time frame than that. It would just make everything smooth. The moving into that would make the transition smooth, but I think that if we did nothing, it would just be, there's not, I really don't have a personal opinion, just because, like I said, it's not going to, hurt, we're not going to lose anything. We don't stand to lose anything. It's just a matter, I think, of just, bringing it current, doing it alike to other utilities, making it easier, allowing for a better turnaround, in the billing as far as when we issue a bill and receiving payment for, when someone, moves from Laverne.
And the option consolidate in 1 whole month internal, what's that number? Do you have an estimate?
It would depend on the time that we chose.
Yeah, I guess so.
So obviously, this time in the early spring, I have found just looking at numbers would be the smaller number.
A little less than midsummer.
Right.
Yeah.
But you're looking at anywhere between 850,000 to over $1 million. Obviously, again, it would depend on the season.
Yeah.
But well over, $500,000 at least at the very minimum, and it would never be that low. I would say probably, more like 800,000 would be the lowest.
The second option, as you have it scaled out throughout 12 months, would that increase the bill for 12 months?
It wouldn't necessarily increase the bill, a lot. It might increase it by a little, and when I say a little, when you add an extra day or remove an extra day, it would go up, sometimes a few dollars, sometimes maybe 5 or 10. It wouldn't be a huge increase.
See, our biggest challenge in Laverne, as you know, I'm sure, we pay a lot for our water. So, in the people that live week to week, $3, $5 is a big difference, to their monthly income. So that's why I wanted to bring it in front of the board and show the board that if this is something that must be addressed, because I was kind of led to believe that we had to do this. We had to make these changes or there was consequences. But if there's no consequences, maybe it's just how I interpreted the conversation with Phyllis at the meeting.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that you mentioned that. It does seem like there's a disparity between what was discussed and what is rumored. So I just want to clarify for everyone first, before we talk about anything else, we are not even proposing a rate increase. We have steadily decreased the water rates over the last several years. So a rate increase is not a part of this discussion at all. One thing that you didn't mention to bring in the billing more current is that the final bill seems to be when we have the hardest problem collecting the money that's owed to the city. And literally, it comes out of the citizens' pockets because that has to be compensated somehow. And how that's compensated is at the end of the year, whatever is not collected, Phyllis gives us a report, we have to write it off. And the reason that happens is because, let's say a person lived in Laverne from January to December. They lived here the whole year. And then in January of the following year, they moved to Murfreesboro, bought a house or something. So they move into that house. They don't get their last final bill for another 2 months. So they're already 2 months into their new home, paying their water bills more currently because Murfreesboro's not got this big of a gap of 2 years. And they get that final bill. There's no leverage that Laverne has to get them to pay it other than threatening collections or sending it to collections. And once it goes to collections, it's already hit their credit report. So they're further disincentivized to keep their bill paid off. So it just means that we're writing off money that could be collected if we build a little bit better. And I do agree with what Alderman Church said, and a lot of people are living very, very close on their budget. Certainly, I have been there, and I guarantee you that I know the difference of what a few dollars makes. But what we're trying to do is get our billing to be compatible with the AMR capabilities, so that, if your water bill is really high one month and you have a leaky toilet, you'll know, hey, I need to change this right now or it's just going to keep going. But if you don't get your bill for 2 months after it, well, then you already have a full month billing cycle that's coming before you even knew there was an issue if they didn't catch it at the water billing department. So that's why we, we're tossing around an idea of what if we decrease the bill due date by a couple of days a month and spread it out over several months to minimize the impact to any person, just to bring the billing current. And then once that's done, that would end. And what they drew out here is just a 14-month example. It could be, we could stretch it out longer and make the impact less and less to the citizens, or we could increase the rate and make it a little bit more and get it over with sooner. So, or we can kick the can down the road for the next administration to blame us for not repairing it. So, that's kind of where we're at with that. I just wanted to throw that in there too.
Well, I'm in agreement with some of what you said, but I disagree with you said that it's not an increase. It is an increase if we spread it out over the 14 months.
It is not a rate increase.
Yeah, I didn't say it was a rate increase. I said the individuals at home, the bills, your bill will increase. I didn't say the rate is increased. I didn't say it's a mathematical equation. I'm saying the bill you receive at.
I'd like to correct that. The bill will not increase because the bill will always be for 28 to 32 days. It's just the due date and the actual bill date that's changing, not the amount of the bill. Yeah.
So
We're leaving the reading dates exactly the same as they are. Right. We're speeding up our processes to bill and to collect.
Will the dollar amount go up?
No.
Okay.
It's going to depend on, and I'll have to, I apologize. It's going to depend on the number of days, the 28 to the 32. So if you get a bill for 28 days, it's going to be a few dollars less than the bill that you get for 32 days.
That's common with what we're
And
doing.
that's common
now.
regardless.
Current.
Yeah. And so that it's going to, when, I don't want to say, no, it's not going to, it's not going to increase
Well, it sounds
or
like to me it
whatever,
is
but-
going to go up over a 12-month period.
The only thing that would change if the board chose to bring it current and use this option would be the due date. So it would mean, and that would only change for, in this example, a span of 14 months.
14
You would eventually get back, like, for example, this cycle is typically due around the 30th of the month. Over the span of the 14 months, the due date would fluctuate, but you would eventually, at the end of that 14-month cycle, be back at your normal due date, and you would be on a current billing.
My concern is if someone's average bill is $65 a
Mm-hmm.
month, and they get a bill for $68 a month, that's an increase in their bill.
Right, but-
Even though it's just a 2-day here or 3-day there.
Mm-hmm.
But if you do that over a 14-month period, it's.
Yeah,
But-
and that's not going to be any different than what we're currently
We as a board
doing.
member will have to say, when people come to us and say, why is my water bill higher than it's always? I haven't done any changes. Can we sit here and say that the decision we made did not increase their bill?
But this isn't about, as far as their read date, this is just changing when their bill's due. It's not
Yeah.
changing the amount.
Well, it looks like smoke and mirrors to me when we're trying to, we don't have to do anything. Previous administrations left it alone. You guys have been on the board for several years
In discussing this and trying to think of strategies.
in
to-
discussing it.
And Mr. Church, I believe you were the one that brought this to our
Oh,
attention.
yeah.
We
Well,
had
yeah.
several discussions, and you were the one that, wanted us to investigate this and bring something to the board, because you felt a strong need to bring the billing current.
Well, I need to correct you on that. You brought it to us and said with the AMR, we had till June to correct this?
I made a conversation to educate the board on how our current billing system is, and you were totally shocked at what I was explaining to you, and your interest picked up, and that's when you decided, hey, this is something we need to look at.
It is something we need to look at, but you said by June we had to, or by July 1, we had to get this taken care of.
No, I didn't give any definite
No?
dates.
Okay. So everyone forgot why we brought it up.
How long has this been going on? When did this start?
I spoke to one of the longest-standing employees of the city in general, and in our department, who's been doing this for a very long time, and that's about 35-ish years, and it's been that way as long as he's been there. I would say this is how it generally started, just because of the requirements to get the task done. So when I say you read manually, they did it in a month time frame. And then they billed on the first of the month, and then they allotted 30-day time period. It's been that way, I would say, from the beginning. And it was just never
So it's
brought
built
current.
up over time?
It's just been the same. Nothing's changed. So it's always been, when they get the bill in the hand, it's a month prior. When they come to pay the bill, it's 2 months prior. It's always been that way.
So what would be the reason that we have to do anything?
The board requested us to look at it.
Yeah, well, you brought it to our attention. And you brought it to our attention and said it will affect the AMR.
So I think some of the benefits that you listed would be some of those if we did something. That
Right.
It would lessen the confusion with consumption periods. It'd bring the water billing current, align with billing, water distribution reporting, eliminates delay in initial and final billing. I think that's what she had outlined as far as the benefit.
Yeah, there's $1 million, between $850 to $1 million we have to spread out over a year's time. That's what this says, pretty much.
No, you're not. You're not following.
Is that not what it says?
So if the board decided that they wanted to bring the billing current, and they chose the option of assuming the cost of 1 month worth of service.
Right.
So meaning that I wouldn't generate a bill to each customer for 1 month's time. That would be a loss of revenue in the $800 to $1 million
category.
And that's the one option.
That's the one option. That's not something that we have to do, obviously. It's not
Right.
something that it has already happened. There's not a loss there.
Right.
It's just that if we wanted to, get this current, and let's just say for whatever reason, we had to do it immediately, that would be an option. That's not, an attractive option to either party. Nobody wants to do that to the, citizens. Nobody wants to do that to the city. And so that's kind of been the drastic end of what could happen. I don't think anyone, including myself, has ever thought that would, should be done. The process to get to this point, as proposed in the graph, is an easier process. When we bill now, we bill in a 28 to 32 day time frame.
Right.
When we transition to what I have laid out here in the chart, it's not going to be any different. So there may have been some confusion in my response when you said, would it increase the bill? If it's not going to do the bill any different than what it's been for the last 30 plus years. Sometimes they get a bill for 28 days. Sometimes they get a bill for 32 days.
So how do we make up that $1 million?
You're saying if we chose to
if we went
not,
I'm not talking in a lump sum where we just don't bill for the month, and eat it through the city. I'm saying on your other option, to me, looking at this graph, we're changing the bill dates.
Right.
So some of these months, I'm not saying the water rate is increasing, but I'm saying the paper bill that someone gets is going to go up.
It's going to be the same. The only thing that's going to increase, or the only thing that's going to fluctuate, or the only thing that could really potentially present a hardship, if you will, would be the change in the due date. So what this scale proposes is that we bring it current by fluctuating the due date. That's the basis of that. So you're not, I'm generating a bill on April the 1st now, and we're requiring it to be due on April the 30th. What this would propose is that when I generate it on the 1st, and of course this is just an example, that we have it due by the 15th. And doing that over time and changing the due date would bring us to a point where we would eventually be current, but you would also be back at your regular due date. So it would be a short time period to endure some fluctuation, but it's not going to affect the dollar amount of the bill. The bill amount would be the same as if we didn't change anything. This is essentially changing the due date in a way that, in a scale that would bring it current.
And if we didn't do anything, it's fine.
Right. There's nothing that's holding us, to the fire to change it. It would, the benefits that, like Mayor Cole said, that I listed here are what we would benefit from, which are benefits for the city as well as for the citizens, because all of this obviously is important to, everyone, because, we want to stay on top of our water loss. We want to make sure that citizens are, notified as quickly as possible about potential issues.
So we were led to believe that this is something that we had to do, that we had to make some sort of changes, in the near future. So I just want to make sure I'm on the right page.
Yeah, we're getting ready to upgrade our billing software, and we had hoped that would happen. And that may have been some of the confusion, but this is not a requirement for that, and that's not a requirement for this either. Because I know there may have been some talk about that in the same conversation, but we had hoped to upgrade to our new version by July, and that may have been where that stemmed. I don't know.
Exactly
Obviously, I wasn't present, but I don't.
There's no question if that's what it was.
I just want to clarify that the staff has not let the board believe that we have to do this at all, so.
That's correct. I want to say too that the staff brought it to our attention so we'd be aware, so that we could have a discussion to make a decision about how to proceed.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Let's say that you get someone that comes into the city tomorrow to start their water bill. They won't have to worry about this, right? They'll already be incorporated into the new. They won't be 2 months behind.
If we stay the way that we are, then they'll fall into that same pattern.
So you're not doubling up the, You're not, the new people, you're not transitioning over. You
No,
just-
if it changes, it'll change, you know, for everyone.
Okay.
So that's been like that 35 years.
I mean, as long as,
And no board has ever just, it's like it's just floating around in space.
Wait a
It wouldn't have been
minute.
an issue until, what she's saying is, that when we went to AMR, we actually have the technology to get the bill read, like all the meters read in like a short time frame, so we can actually bill it. So that's what presented the issue is, and it's not even really an issue, it's behind. So if we want to continue writing off water law, or not water loss, just water debt that's not paid that you do every year, because what we're saying is when people move out, we're not collecting on those. It's real hard to collect that.
What happens to the money when somebody, I don't remember, it's been so long, but I'm pretty sure I had to pay a deposit.
We don't have a deposit.
we have
service fee.
yeah, it's a non-refundable service fee. So if you know, someone leaves and doesn't pay their bill, you know, we do our very best to collect it. We'll send letters, we do final bill notices, so we send it, you know, after the final bill is sent within a, you know, 60-day time frame. We'll continue to try to collect for a bit. We'll eventually write it off, yet we will send it to collections. And then the only way that we would ever recoup that is if they chose to pay it to ourselves or the collections agency, or if they were to move back to Laverne and want to make, you know, set up a new service, then they would be required to pay it at that time before they could set up a new service. So.
And I would like to add that we did contact a couple of cities, Consolidated and a couple of other surrounding cities, and no one bills like we do. We're very unique, so they've over time.
It was mentioned at our workshop that Chattanooga did that.
Yes, we called them, and Chattanooga does not bill their water. They bill sewer only. They contract out their water billing to a contract company, and we talked to a lady that's been with them for 14 years, and she said that they have always read their meters one day and billed within the 24 to 48 hours.
So if this is never brought up again, it just kind of lays around dormant until somebody brings it up?
I'm going to bring it up as a reminder, you know, every year to say, remember, this is what we're doing.
I think a lot of times,
All about that
if I
AMR.
can,
Remember, it was so important.
you know, we talk about aligning
Pass
up
it on to the next board.
with other cities and
Isn't that
what's the
amazing?
norm or the standard. And what we do is very unfamiliar to people. I mean, it's hard to explain. It's hard, you know, when you've been not, you know, in Laverne and it's just always been that. Or there's people that have been in Laverne their whole life, have gotten one of these bills their whole, you know, adult lives, and they, you know, they come in when they have an issue and they are still confused. So I think bringing it current, you know, is across the board kind of the standard, which may be another reason, you know, that it gets brought up a lot. You're wanting to, you know, align with the technology that we have and utilize the tools and the technology that we have, and then, you know, also be, you know, good stewards, you know, to our customers, because the turnaround time and sending someone a bill, you know, just a few days or a week after they've left the property versus them not getting it for 2 months and then it not being due for another month. I mean, you know, that's a long turnaround time, if you will. But
Will it ever come up to where it'll be on that write-off sheet? We'll just write it off?
Every year, probably half of those accounts that are on the write-off sheet were probably the ones that moved out of the city and did not pay that last bill.
I mean, we've seen developers and real estate agents and everything on that write-off sheet.
So to go back to what you were saying, if we went with your graduated scale, residents wouldn't see an increase in their actual bill. It would change just their date.
it would be the same as they had before. Now, it's going to fluctuate because, like I said, they're going to have that still be in the different, it's never going to be an exact 30-day bill. Do you have to take into consideration holidays, weekends, that sort of thing? So they're going to get a bill for 28 to 32 days is what we try to stay within. So they may see a slight fluctuation just depending on the number of days. But as far as anything else changing monetarily, it's not going to be any different than what we're currently doing. The only thing that would change would be the time frame that we allot for payment for the due date.
Okay. And then you mentioned your software upgrade. That was the last fiscal budget. How much was that?
To upgrade from our current software, which is FlexGen, which is a good 30 years old, to NextGen, it was
The total cost for all the software upgrades for all of our products, which is general ledger, payroll, purchasing, property tax, utilities, was right around, a little less than 30,000, I'm gonna say 27, 28. We budgeted for it last year. I think we may have paid for part of it last year, but most of it has fallen into this year, and we'll probably be doing a budget amendment in the next few months, because we just finished up the property tax, and we're hoping to get payroll done before the end of the year. Utilities will not come until after the new fiscal year, so we're going to have some pass forward things to.
But the utility billing portion was about $10,000.
Okay.
Versus a whole brand new software system that can cost more than
So this has been on the table for many years with the current board members, and this is the year that we want to make sure we update everything. That's.
Well, it's never come up as a discussion whenever I've been on the board, and
Well, she just said it's brought up every year. That's what I was just going on.
as far as an actual discussion to get it current, that's never, to my knowledge, occurred on this board. And at the same time, you also have in the current portion, looks like we had gotten both as far as residential, commercial, and industrial meter transition all completed February of 2018.
So that was, yeah.
I just want to mention that,
That was under administration.
Allison and her department have worked really, really, really hard over the past couple of years to be as electronically efficient and as up-to-date in technology as possible. I mean, we've upgraded our billing system, we've upgraded our payment system to have access to dialing into a phone number to pay your bill, paying online through various portals, through the city website, through Paymentus, through your own checking account at your own personal bank, credit cards. We've lowered the fees on that. It's just, we've updated everything, but we're still behind in the billing.
Yeah, no,
And
I agree.
It would be nice,
I would not have your job.
Right, I agree with what Allison's saying, and I feel you're about as putting it out there as easy and simple as you can so people understand it. My concern is when Alderman No and I've asked, and Vice Mayor Brown's asked, is there going to be an increase on someone's bill, and there's not going to be an increase, but there's going to be a fluctuation,
in the due date.
In the due date.
Right.
So that's what the average person is going to hold us accountable for. When we say their bill isn't going up, we have to fix this problem, and their bill goes up $3, it's an increase to them.
Their bill is not
Their
going
bill can
up.
go up at any time because of usage, though, so that's why we're saying we can't make that statement that their bill won't go up, because that means that nobody's bill go up, you can use as much water as you want to.
No, I understand on usage, but I'm saying the billable dates, it's,
No, the frequency of the billable dates is not going to change from what it is currently. It does fluctuate already, because they don't work on weekends and holidays, so they have to bill according to what day they can read the meters, right?
Right.
So in the past, we didn't have the technical capability in order to bill more current than we were doing now. But once we got the AMR software in, and then now with the next gen software, now we have an opportunity to bill at a frequency that would be more compatible with the technology that we have. And so if this board does nothing, they can choose to do nothing. It will just remain 2 months past due until someone decides to solve it. And so the purpose is to discuss it, inform everyone, and see if we as a board want to take an action.
That's why we brought it up to have it put on the agenda.
Right. But the misinformation is a little bit confusing to the citizens, I think, more so than
It's misinformation. The citizens will be able to interpret this as they see fit.
Will you put anything in the monthly water bill about it or anything, or just?
I mean, that's obviously up to what the board decides.
Well, at
if
this
you
rate, for
decide that you
35
wanna-
years, we could put raise the rate let everybody pay 1 nickel extra a month, just 1 nickel, it'd be paid off by now.
That's a rate increase. That's different than a billing.
I
If
would
your bill's
guess,
$19.95, we want to pay $20.
my guess would be if anything were to change that would impact the citizens, well, not a guess, we would do our very best effort to notify everyone in whatever means, we could, whether that be a mailer or,
It would be something we would do overnight.
yeah, flyers
Plenty of time
or,
notice.
a public forum or running something on Channel 3. I mean, we would do whatever we needed to do.
And if we don't touch the subject again, it's business as usual.
It is. It's gonna continue to come up because I know, some of you guys will reach out to me when there's an issue. And a lot of times it's, explaining, well, this is for this month and now it's, and sometimes when, issues arise with customers, it's confusing to them or they've gotten into a situation because they weren't aware that this is how it works. So just doing it this way creates a lot of confusion and misunderstanding, which is obviously going to, result in some discussions and issues there. But I mean, business as usual. I mean, it would just continue being the way that it is. Yeah.
Status quo, that's right. We'll just pass it on to the next board.
Another thing I want to mention too is our water loss. We're held to a standard for the next few years on our water loss. If we were to make the changes that are needed to bring our billing current, our distribution and our billing of water would be more in the same time frame, and we would have a better picture of if we have a true water loss or not. Right now, we don't have a way to measure a good measurement if we are delivering water 2 months ago and we're billing it 2 months later, and the reading periods are half of a month of 1 month and half of a month of another, or 2 days out of 1 month and 28 days out of another. It makes it very hard for us to determine if we truly have a water loss or whether something else is going on that we don't have any control over. So just narrowing that gap would help us, because Kyle and I and Allison, we work on the water loss every month, and it's just all over the place. Some months we're running 12%, and some months we're running 38%. So, shortening that gap. And when we've got to address the water loss to lower our water loss percentages each year. So this is another way that would help us to, transition into a better reporting.
We've done a lot of things as far as trying to figure out how to best gauge our water loss. Many things as far as requiring certain, reporting or asking, not necessarily requiring for certain reporting, and, spreadsheets and things like that. And we see a fluctuation, and I think at this point we've kind of decided that it has to do a lot with the time frame that we're billing and those numbers that I'm, able to, generate a month and a half after we've gotten, the numbers from the water treatment plant. So it's kind of like comparing apples to oranges. We're doing the best that we can, but that would be another, as far as the benefits, aligns billing with the water distribution reporting. It would help us determine better where to focus in the aspect of water loss, and where we truly are, because 1 month will be, down and the next month will be up, but that also has to do with the time periods that we're reporting. And, like Phyllis said, one cycle goes from the middle of 1 month to the middle of the next month, but, they report to us in month time frame. So, there are some benefits.
Any other questions for Allison?
Thank you so much for bringing
No
all
problem.
that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Allison.
Thank you.
Mayor and Alderman comments. Alderman Church.
Oh, I'm just concerned that the city's gonna spend more money to oust me. But, I guess we'll just let the legal process take its course. I personally think it's a waste of taxpayers' money. And, that's really all I gotta say.
Alderman No.
No, sir, I'm good.
Alderman Jones.
I'm good.
Vice Mayor Brown.
No, thank you.
Just want to thank everyone who came out to all the National Day of Prayer events that occurred today. And want to thank Allison for spending so much time both today and last night working on this. With that, call this meeting adjourned.